It's one of the campaigns we did for Traeger.
Nice.
Yeah, they were criticized as being like a boys' club.
Okay.
Yeah, but by one of their prospective client.
So how does a prospective client say you guys are a boys' club?
I don't even know. Yeah, because pretty much of the architects, I think then it was like mostly males.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and but they had to tell the story that no, we actually facilitate and empower even females as well.
Okay.
Who want to go and study architecture in different institutions. So they pass through. They do their gap year at a Traeger design workshop.
Okay.
Yeah. So when they were criticized, then they said to us, can you design a magazine advert saying that we're not a boys' club? That's what they gave us. So we had to research into the gender issue, like in terms of the building whatever environment.
Okay.
Yeah, they call it the built space, within the built space, and it's a worldwide issue. The gender issue in the built space is everywhere across the world. Yeah, even in terms of salaries, you might have the same qualifications, but females maybe get paid less.
Okay,
and their perception in and how they are treated when they do like site visiting is also an issue.
Okay,
so we said no, a magazine advert is not enough. Doesn't offer engagement. What if we can tell a story of empowerment? What are you doing, guys, to empower, females? Yeah, they come here for gap year. They go to different places. So then we had to tell the story through the lens of their 3 female architects. Yeah, so we did these interviews as well.
Okay.
Very, very simple videos, just them telling their story, what inspires them, what you think about the future of women in architecture.
So it's a Turnberry.
It was for Traeger.
Traeger
Design Workshop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we also did like a mini prospectus, so that if they need to go outside, like field trips, and reaching out to different parts of the country, they can distribute those prospectus to kids.
Okay.
Yeah, because a lot of kids, young girls, like in disadvantaged schools, they don't even know that these careers exist. So from an idea of a magazine advert, it became like an empowerment drive.
Fascinating. And that is just what branding is, right?
that's the aspect of storytelling.
Yeah.
So when you tell stories, you generate what we call I hope I'm correct, end media.
Okay.
End media, and through telling stories, you're not hard selling. It's more of a corporate social responsibility, if I can say, but it has huge benefits to the brand, through brand mentions and all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's part of the layering of the brand.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming into us. What is it? 5 minutes into the conversation, but that's good. I think starting from a reference point is usually good to start from.
Okay.
So my name is Valentine Wamba. I'm the editor at TechZim, and today with One Design. And I promised that I would never introduce my guests anymore because it's just like I'm joined by, and then they continue. My name is.
Okay.
So I'll let you introduce yourself and tell us what you do and where we are. Very nice space, by the way.
Okay, thank you. So this is Honor Design. We're a design practice based in Mount Pleasant. And I'm Sherman Baloyi. I'm the creative director at Honor Design. So we pretty much do everything that puts the brand in the best place possible, in terms of keeping its promise to its stakeholders, custodians. So how we position ourselves is that we strive. We empower brands to keep striving for better in a connected world. And I think brands are connected. We live in a global community. So branding in that aspect, I think it encompasses a lot. It's physical, it's offline, sometimes it's sound. So branding lives in many places.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a very loaded description of what branding is, and I try to keep up.
Okay.
As I'm a dilettante in branding. I'm kind of reading as I go along. Just trying to understand
Yeah.
the anatomy of what makes a brand, how to build a brand, or not how to imagine a brand.
Okay.
How to put a story behind it.
Okay.
So can you give me like a definition? Because you guys have been around. How long has Honor Design been around in Zimbabwe?
So we've been around for like this very studio. I think it's now 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think the company's about 6-7 years. Yeah.
So it's Zimbabwe. Let's say in and out, almost
in and out. Like personally, as a designer, I think just slightly about 14 years in the industry. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So a brand is it's a very, how can I say, it's a very scary term.
Yeah.
To say what is a brand, and someone that imagines this massive, like you imagine Nikes and Adidas and Apples and all that as brand. But in the local context, how would you describe a brand, like a local brand? What do people in Zimbabwe, or let's start from the designer's perspective. What do designers imagine when they're in Zimbabwe and they say, you know, I'm working to redesign or redefine a brand?
Define a brand. I think a brand is a sum of many, you know, components, if I can say. But from a local perspective, I think sometimes there's a misalignment in terms of how we use the term brand. And a brand is not a design. It's how the user perceives maybe a company. So as the owners of the brand, as the stakeholders, we never define the brand. So the users, in this case, the customers, are the custodians of a brand. So a visual mark merely identifies a certain brand, but it's not the brand. So through different touch points, customer touch points, you know, they get to interact with a brand, and they have associations with that kind of with that brand. So, and they are the owners of the brand, not really the company.
Okay.
The company, they have a business interest, and customers, they want to solve their problems. We look at Econet. Econet is a brand. We look at Coca-Cola, though it's a global brand, but I think it's got a big presence here in Zimbabwe. And I think Coca-Cola have done well to sort of like capture people's imaginations, you know, just saw that happiness, big idea, when we talk about the big idea. And maybe we can talk about that later, that brands, they have a defined purpose, and they have a big idea, they have a legacy that they want to imprint on customers. Yeah.
So we usually spend our time in the startup world, so startups and small emerging businesses. And I had a podcast, what was it, 2 months ago? 2 months with John and Elizabeth Mourinho from Zarura.
Oh yeah, I know John is a brilliant designer. Yeah. I'm always saying I need to sit down with this guy and just talk to him. Yeah.
He's really, really, really good at what he does. And the company itself is from a startup perspective, a startup, or if I don't get the definition correct, but if I do, Ed will put it up on the screen, is a business that is a business or concept that will grow beyond the initial founders, that will grow into something more established. So examples would be like, you know, Twitter, for example, was a startup and then it became an established company. And John said the one thing that startups don't do is prioritize brand strategy. So I don't know, what do you make? So you before we went on air, you actually told me about the startups you worked with, and that's the part where. Is that how close does that align to your experience in Zimbabwe when dealing with startups and the concept of brand
strategy? I think the concept or the idea of the process of brand strategy, it's commonplace like amongst designers, but selling that idea to business owners, it's difficult, and because brand strategy is quite a process. You need a commitment from all stakeholders. If it's a startup, obviously the owner of the startup and his partners or her partners, they need to commit to probably a series of workshops or maybe discussions. But people don't take it seriously locally. We facilitate brand workshops. We call them brand alignment workshops here. But it's the same as a strategy. And the few ones that we have done, when we look at the design result, it's been fantastic. It carries a big idea that you cannot achieve without having a brand strategy session.
Okay.
So I think it's important, but local startups sometimes because of budgetary constraints and time and commitment, and not really appreciating the importance of and impact of actually having a brand strategy. So sometimes they tend to just don't worry, I just need a logo. It's fine.
But you said a logo is it's just a mark.
It's just a mark, yeah. It's not.
So I'm curious to know, because sometimes this is difficult to translate to founders and CEOs and even a higher management of a company or a startup, of the importance of what a brand strategy or brand session brings, or it might not necessarily be rebranding, but in a sense finding that alignment in branding. So my question is twofold, but I'll start with the first part is, how can they see the benefits? Because in most cases, these guys are numbers guys. They want to see data that backs up this or that. So I'm curious, how do you then describe to them the elements that say this is going to help you in this respect?
Yeah, what we do, we normally put a proposal. So that proposal also has a few case studies. Sometimes the case study, it could be a client that we had with that kind of process, or that we facilitated. But at times it could be an international case study. I always like to show people why this process is very important. And if you look at companies like Airbnb, even Uber itself, Apple, so these are companies built on a bigger purpose. There's a common quote from one of these guys. I think it's Simon Sinek. He says that people don't buy the what, they buy the why. So beyond what you do, what is your purpose? What is your bigger legacy as a brand? And when you connect with that, I think it becomes easier to scale up your brand across all marketing channels, because once you have an agreed perspective in terms of the purpose, you can align all your communication as a brand and start telling stories that bring that purpose to light. And we will put that kind of stuff in our proposal. And we always say that design is the end result of a strategy. It's like the iceberg model. You see the top, but the bigger supporting structure is hidden from our eyes. And I think brand strategy is like that. No one can say it, but its impact is holding the company together.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe I can put it that way.
Okay, that's actually a nice way to put it. Is that it's only, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's only getting what you then see visually is a culmination of the communication, the work, the conversation that happened behind the scenes to then come with this story. Mostly, it's I don't know if I get this wrong all the time, but for me, brands are not logos, emblems, or stickers. It's stories.
It's stories.
I reminisce to the Nike ads. The Just Do It. It's an action. It's an actual action. It's not the swoosh. The swoosh is now associated as how to identify Nike, but it's the feeling that you then get from the story that was communicated. So interestingly, I wanted to know about, so branding, if I'm not mistaken, has two fronts. There's the external stuff, what we see, and the internal stuff. So my conversation with John and Elizabeth, I got a little bit carried away because I was excited and got into the internal aspect of branding. So how would you define internal branding in terms of a company's structure? I
think internal branding is very important. I think it should be the first in my case, because once you identify the purpose, now it's easier to take it through your employees. But internal branding for me, it's about the culture. It's also about, because if you look at Nike, for example, they have a brand manifesto. And I would like to believe that manifesto, yes, it's there on their website, but it's more meaningful to its employees. Having a manifesto as a brand, I think is one of the most important things for your employees, for them to see your vision and to be motivated to wake up every single day and do their best. So a brand strategy, if it's followed to its fullest extent, it has all those components. Okay, we're gonna do our manifesto. I always refer to the Apple manifesto, so I can't recite it here. I need to check online, but I think it's one of the most inspiring brand manifestos. When you're feeling low, when you read that statement of truth, it kind of gives you energy, and that's internal branding. Yes, it's for because brands have communities as well. There's an internal community, there's external community. The external community, of course, is the customers, but the internal one is the people that work hard every day behind the scenes. And those people, they also need to buy into the idea. Okay, where are we going with this? What is there for me? So if a brand is not clear, if it lacks clarity, you find that it's going to be difficult to motivate your employees because there's no basis. There is no tangibility for them. So branding, internal branding, is about tangibility, and there's intentional or whatever strategies that can be put in place to have that kind of a buy-in from employees.
What kind of strategies are those that can be implemented?
There's what they call I'm forgetting the term. But it's the same thing that we do for brand strategy. But there's also one for employees where you take them on a journey of understanding the brand. What do we stand for? What is our culture? And I think the culture aspect is very important. Many startups, they don't have a defined culture. So what is our culture? What are the pillars of our culture? And do my people or our employees know that culture as a brand? I think those aspects must be very clear from the onset. But it's not too late. If one decides, okay, let's do this, it can be done. That's
how difficult is it now? Because it's kind of like a rebrand in my mind, that you're going to your employees and saying, we want to redefine how we do things. Well, not redefine, but we want to be explicit about how we do things. Because now I could be incorrect, but in most cases I've seen some of these things in startups it's implied. It's not necessarily said or written down somewhere or codified. It's really, you should know. Instead of a case of, no, we want you to know and want you to bring you into the brand. So how do you approach that? Like, how in situations you've dealt with, how have you approached that sort of, we want to give like a flesh to what we think we are?
What we think, It's not easy. I've been able to attend a few master classes online, and I remember one was from an institution in the UK called Future London Academy. So these have the base minds in terms of the design business. You talk about the guys responsible for Budweiser, the biggest brands in the world. They present their case studies, and across the world, it's not easy to sell strategy. It's a difficult process, but I think it stems from for us as owner design. I think one thing that we do is we do an audit. We thoroughly interrogate your brand from all points, aspects. Then we give you like a sort of like what can I say, a bird's eye view of the potential. And sometimes clients come to us and say, guys, we have reached the ceiling. We can't go beyond. And you find that, yes, a brand strategy process aligns maybe the brand in a certain direction, but it also gives them ideas of how do we redefine ourselves as a brand, and how do we remodel our business? Because right now we've reached this point, we can't go beyond. We had a session recently with one of the local startup, and part of our session, it includes what we call business goals. So we look at your business goals, short-term, medium, and long-term, and then we also look at the efficient side that you need to put in place. So we talk about systemization as well, just to get you to automate certain aspects of your business so that you can meet your business goals.
So that all of that is embedded into
it's embedded
into the strategy itself.
So that's why we call our sessions a brand alignment workshop.
Okay.
So it has the purpose. We look at your buyer personas. We look at the buyer experience map. Then we also look at the business goals and the efficient side of things, because I think that's very important. So when we did this session with a dear client of ours, they agree that we need to retool. Our systems are old. Our equipment is old. If we don't retool, we'll be phased out by new competition, and it's happening actually. So this is the nature of our workshops. They touch on all aspects, but of course the first is the brand strategy aspect. But we always make sure that we touch on the business aspect as well, because that's where the money is. They need to see if they're making money and if they're safe in terms of their target market, the business as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So another interesting thing is, so when you're talking, I just got the impression that you could be offering the same service as another company. They could be younger than you, and you come into the space, right? And how they beat you is not necessarily because their service is better. It could be the same. You could be selling exactly the same thing, but the story they're telling about their brand is probably more compelling.
Yeah.
Then is that correct?
Yeah. It is. Yeah, because we spoke about storytelling. Yeah. So I forgot to mention that brand messaging as well. So brand messaging now, what's your singular brand message, and what are the messaging pillars? So that's where the story comes in. And a story has got a hero, it has got a villain. I don't know what, I'm not a writer, but I think those components are very important.
Yeah.
So we need to identify what is a villain in this case, and how do we close our story? What is our resolution? And there's brand storytelling, sorry. And I think it's important that a brand tell good stories. Yeah, and if I remember one of the powerful stories that I remember during the COVID pandemic is the Nike Advert. Yeah, it was just black and white. There was no filming crew, just pictures they took of athletes on Instagram, made them black and white, but a powerful message. Yeah, and they told a story. People started sharing that piece of story. Yeah, and I think to them, Nike, I think athletes are their heroes. Yeah, and they're at the forefront of their business. They never talk about maybe the design of their shoe. They always place experience and the athlete in the forefront. If you noticed.
Yeah.
They don't sell, our shoe it's got a comfortable sole, it's 9 centimeters, made with the best rubber in the world. No, it's about you. Because their mission, if I remember, is to make everyone an athlete. If you have legs, you can run. So that's a bigger purpose.
Yeah.
They've got a commitment towards that purpose. And that's where the stories come from. Yes, there's the founder story, but there's also the brand story.
So here's the thing. I've noticed that most startups run with the founder story for a really long time.
Yeah.
And people begin to build a cult of personality around themselves and the brand. The best example is Steve Jobs and Apple, although Apple was becoming its own thing even when he was there. But I find with most local startups, we get to the point where, the founder is the story of the company instead of, that story, the closeness or the close alignment between the founder and the company they've diverged a long time ago. The company has taken on a life of its own. Is that, are my assumptions correct about what's going on?
Yeah. And the founder story is very important, but I don't know how long it can stretch. Maybe it probably puts the brand in a better perspective, if I may say. But it's very important to have a founder story, because that's what put the human face behind a brand. A brand wasn't born on its own. There were people behind it, and sometimes customers. Because remember, we live in a global community, because of internet, and we speak about connectivity. Connectivity is not just like, okay, I can talk to you on WhatsApp. Connectivity is sharing experiences. through all these mediums. And because of that, humans are social animals. Human beings are social animals. We thrive in social setups, groups. And a brand can create groups in a way. And for them to identify and say this brand is approachable, that founder story is very important because it puts a human face behind the brand. And I don't think we have enough founder stories in Zimbabwe.
You don't think it's actually the opposite?
It's the opposite. Yeah. I don't know many of our founder stories except probably Econet. Yeah. I know how Strive started. I also know a bit of Nyaradzo Group, Mataranyika, but the rest I don't know. I don't even know how Cresta, Minerva, Zimnat. Okay, Zimnat is South Africa, Sanlam and all that. But who is the person behind all these things? Yes, we know that it's Shingi Mutasa, but his story is not well articulated. Even on the companies, I don't know. Maybe I need to check. I've never
likewise.
I've never come across that. So founder stories are very important in my view because they connect us to the brand. It puts like a human face to the brand. If you look at Apple, Steve Jobs, when he died, when he passed on, the world was in a mourning. The entire world was mourning. Yeah, it's because of that attachment. And the success of Apple is attributed to Steve Jobs. Yeah, and the brand is now living in its own. On its own now. It's beyond Steve Jobs, whatever era. But we still feel that this is the guy that made it happen for them. If you look at Adobe, for example, I don't know the founder, but there's a story about the founder, Adobe founder. Many brands, blue chip brands that we know. So I think the founder story is very important.
But how long does it last for? Because that's my worries now. You then get to an Elon Musk sort of
Elon Musk,
where it's like it's his story, and then his story is not properly publicized because he wasn't, or from all accounts, not really the ragtag inventor. He was quite wealthy as a child. His father is rich. I don't know what happened between him and PayPal, and then he got shares and sold them. So that sort of cult of personality is what I'm afraid of, is that people then begin to build this around them instead of letting the brand then diverge. I don't know. It's something I'm personally afraid of. I don't know how practical that is now.
I think it must have its expiry date. But yes, maybe you can freeze it somewhere and have it on the website, but not really talk about it all the time. And maybe let the brand now to evolve from that and become its own, and because a brand is a human being, if I may put it that way.
So kind of like Strive and Econet, that his story is not now the most central thing.
It's now detached from Econet.
He's now the visionary behind which I think,
but we know that he's the founder, and he went through these hardships. It was a story. It's a story of resilience and determination. But really, when we interact with Econet, do we put Strive maybe in the picture? It's detached from that. But we know that he was the man. And sometimes his struggles inspired people to stand with him. I'm sure over the years the data fees have been the most expensive, even airtime, but people have stood with Econet.
Well, I guess it's the devil, Like I like to term it that way. So one thing about Econet is, and it might be a slight digression, is that I've tried to convey that we have to appreciate the work they've done up until this point. They've done a lot in terms of technology locally. And data prices are not always necessarily their fault, because again, there are forces that are acting on them as well that might be at a greater degree than acting on an individual. So with data prices, I'm like, it's regrettable, but what else can they do to stay in business? And as for staying with people, I understand when people stay with Econet, because I also think Econet as a brand, and I don't know if I'm correct by saying this, is that they've built an ecosystem around. So Econet, Wireless Zimbabwe, the mobile network operator, and then Cassava Technologies, the sister company, which is now the technology company that has Stewart Bank and EcoCash or EcoCash Holdings Zimbabwe, as it's now called. That alignment I think it's hard to break because
Yeah,
the way
it
they
is.
built their company
Business,
and
yeah.
then the brand itself, how it's like staked a claim on everyone. So insurance, EcoSure is there. Mobile money, they're there. What Mars as well, I guess.
Yeah,
'Cause
Mars.
now-
I didn't know about
Yeah.
Mars. It's only recently that. Oh wow, they're on Mars. Yeah.
So it's as much as people want to leave the you know
They have no
the
choice.
Econet group ecosystem, it's difficult to do that
difficult,
because what
yeah.
do you how are you going to get so many supporting structures around that?
Yeah. I think I agree with you that it's more like the only available option. Yeah, and it doesn't have serious competition. I personally feel like they haven't faced real competition throughout. I mean, if you look at Net One, Telecel, they're not there yet. Yeah, but imagine if Vodacom was to step into Zimbabwe
Yeah.
and MTN. That would be a different story.
Much different.
Yeah, different story. So Econet as a brand, I don't have an affinity towards that brand, but maybe because that's the one company I've used for my whatever telecommunications, EDC data, and all that is the only choice that I know. But am I a fan of the brand? I don't think I am.
But
I don't think they appeal to me. They don't appeal to my emotions as a customer.
as a function. So now I like to term Econet and this family of companies as near makes no difference to Zesa and Zinwa. They're at that point where even though you might not enjoy the story because I feel their story has been told, they're now the market leader.
Yeah.
So they're now pretty much a utility. So whether we feel good about them or not, we still need them in one respect or another.
Yeah, we need them. We need them. But I think it's also a question of I don't know how I can term it. Is it monopoly?
It's near as makes no difference. To be honest, I don't like banding the term monopoly around. But the kind of control they have, I mean, 60% base stations, they own the majority of the market share in almost everything. And mobile money, they're like way ahead. One Money should have hit 1 million last year, right? If Porters is still reporting. So it's
but also we must appreciate one thing about Econet. I think they try to be at the forefront of innovation, and in terms of also advancing technology in Zimbabwe. Just recently, they launched 5G. Okay, they are always the first ones to do stuff in Zimbabwe when it comes to technology.
So is that part of their brand image now?
Yeah.
Is that part of their brand image now to say Econet will do it first?
Yeah, and I would like to talk about Econet. Why? Because I think when we talk about this whole brand strategy, when I was just doing a bit of research and putting my thoughts together, because when you look at logos in Zimbabwe, they're from a pictorial perspective. They really capture what I call the big idea, and Econet they rebranded. At a certain point, first they used to have that globe, spherical, globe, and but their promise has remained intact, connecting the world, connecting Zimbabwe to the world. But now they've abstracted that symbol, that swoosh that represents maybe motion or maybe the sense of orbit. And they've sort of like Our initial logo, maybe it was rushed. It didn't represent our purpose. So let's simplify it further. People have different comments or reservations about that logo, but I personally feel like it's in the right direction in terms of simplifying and capturing the big idea. When you look at big brands across the world, Airbnb, Apple, Windows, they don't talk about what they do. It's about the big idea. And when you get the big idea, when you do the whole process of branding, which is brand strategy, and design happens to be the end result. I think because they were now in the market, I'm speaking in terms of Econet, then at a certain point, they said, okay, in terms of our impact, I think this logo, it's more like clip art because anyone can use that globe. So that's also the challenge I see in logos in Zimbabwe. They're more like adverts, if I may put it that way. So
what would you term that big idea now? Like, because to translate this to someone, I'm very aesthetically inclined. So I can imagine, but to someone who's not aesthetically inclined, someone who doesn't understand how to embody something in a phrase or in a logo, how would you term that big idea? Let's say you're pitching this to like a CEO who's not, very comfortable with things like this.
Maybe I look at you guys. What is your purpose as Taxim?
It's Taxim.
Yeah.
Well, we're here to inform, educate, and sometimes annoy people.
Yeah. So from that purpose, we now break it down and find maybe a theme that we can now represent in an abstract way. So that theme is the big idea. It's the encompassing idea of the whole brand. So why are you doing this in the first place? Money is not a purpose. It's not a purpose.
Okay.
Purpose is impact and maybe legacy. So from that legacy, there's a big idea now.
So if I get you right, it's so we call it, what problem are you trying to solve? Is that the same thing or it's completely different?
I think it's different because I can come up with a solution that solves maybe waste management.
Okay.
But maybe my purpose is to make the world cleaner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So making the world cleaner for me represents the big idea. Is the overall uniting when you bring everything together. Yeah. The one thing that you'd like to leave, this legacy that you'd like to leave, maybe as Taxim, you would want to make every Zimbabwean educated in terms of technology. That's a bigger purpose. Yeah. And if you're going to rebrand, you will say that we want our logo to capture that essence. And when you look at brands in the world, they're abstracted. So abstraction is a very important aspect of a logo design. And it's not the case in Zimbabwe.
So what is abstraction exactly?
Abstraction is, if I define abstraction, I think it's ideas that I don't know, how can I define it? I think it's abstraction is when you break down an idea into what? That's a difficult one. I need to check Google, but I'm sure you get the idea.
Yeah, but just like a simile of or an example of what abstraction would be.
Abstraction. Okay, I see that you frequent the gallery a lot. So when you look at an abstract painting, it's not realistic. So I wouldn't say a portrait drawing is an abstract piece of art. It's not. An abstract piece of art is just a theme. And sometimes when you look at that theme as an individual, you've got your own definition.
Yeah.
So I think in the aspect of design and brand design, abstraction is capturing the story behind the brand, or what we call the purpose, its impact and its legacy, and then representing that, even positioning as well. Like we go back to the Econet example. If I'm correct, I think their payoff line says connecting the world, or the world, connecting the world, something like that. Yeah. If I'm correct, please correct me.
Yeah, Ed will put it up on the screen.
Yeah. So I think the design company behind that, I think there was a trajectory in terms of arriving at that state. It was interpreting that aspect into that one singular swoosh or orbit, whatever mark. Yeah, we look at the Airbnb logo. Yeah, I'm sure you're quite familiar with that. Even the FedEx one.
The FedEx with the arrow.
With the arrow. Yeah. And the FedEx one is an interplay of what we call positive and negative space.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if it was intentional or it was an accidental or whatever, an experimentation. Sometimes in design, because you're trying to find meaning and you happen to just stumble upon something powerful. And when we look at the FedEx logo, most people can't see the arrow, but it's an interplay of what we call positive and negative space, and really balancing what we call the foreground and the ground, which is a design principle. Yeah. And from an international perspective, I think the world is there, and when you scan logos in Zimbabwe, we are still stuck in selling the what, not the why. If you scan logos, just take a drive around the CBD. We depict what the company does. If it's a shop, there's a shopping cart. Let's look at Walmart.
Yeah.
Walmart logo is not a shopping cart.
No.
I don't know what they call that. Maybe it's an asterisk or I can't describe that, right? If you look at Windows, they're not selling computers. Like it's a computer company, but it's just like 4 squares. Maybe those 4 squares, if you read their brand manual, it's a concept, or what we call the big idea. A big idea is a concept, by the way.
Yeah.
But that concept now stems from understanding the impact and maybe the positioning of the company. Okay. But logos mustn't be pictorial. So when I was putting my thoughts together, I said that Zimbabwean clients suffer from what I call pictorial logo paralysis.
Yes, I agree.
So our logos look more like adverts. Yeah. They're actually adverts. Yeah. What's going to happen if dynamics change? You're going to rebrand, and rebranding is very expensive.
Yep.
And Econ spent a lot of money rebranding. Had they followed this the process in the when they set up, they were going to avoid that costly, rebranding exercise. We don't even know how much they spent altogether to rebrand, but I know for a fact for that mark from sources in the industry, that was $60K just for that mark, which is USD, which is not much money for a company like Econet.
Yeah.
But let's look at the impact of that rebranding. They have to change signage, uniforms, and all that. So we're looking at millions of dollars here.
Yeah.
Over years. Yeah. So that's a costly exercise. So brand strategy is important because it saves you money. Yes, it might be costly, like having to have a brand strategy, but it will save you money in the long run. Because startups, they will evolve and become big companies like Facebook.
Yeah.
From a bedroom now to one of the biggest companies in the world.
So here I'm not tempted to ask. The thing is the consequences of startups not prioritizing, or at the very least not seriously deliberating on what their brand is. Because I remember in the conversation I had with John, I was like, you have to put your mark in the world early. You have to understand what you want to be and what you want to achieve really early to put your mark, because the world is getting closer and closer together, because videos bring us closer together.
Yeah.
So funny enough, with a friend of mine yesterday, I was like, you could actually have an idea he's got a company that he runs, and I was like, you could have an idea for the company that you have in your head, like how the brand is brought out, or how the company is represented, internally by you, the story behind the brand, for lack of a better term. And in a year, let's say tomorrow morning, someone then, presents that same story you had in your head, and is immediately cornered that space off. And now you get removed from that authenticity of, what you're going to bring not actually being yours, just now being something you had to improvise on the fly just to get, to understand that the space is shrinking.
Yeah.
So when it comes to startups in Zimbabwe, and I do understand that the pictorial logos is something that grinds my gears. And I like the mention of the FedEx logo because it's layered, like we're just saying, foreground and the ground. You then get to see a lot of. It's an experience in itself. It's like a treasure hunt. The first time you see the arrow is like you then realize, so that's what they're doing.
Yeah, even Amazon as well. It's
a
very good example. I remember chatting to a client. Then he wanted a logo, and he gave me this description. I said, my guy, this is an illustration. It's now a flyer. It's not a logo. Then I gave him the Amazon example. Then he says Amazon doesn't have a mark. It's just Amazon. But look below the logo. There's an arrow that links A to Z. What is the big idea of Amazon? What is the impact?
Everywhere they want to link anything to
anything. Yeah. So that A to Z tells a story that we can give you anything on our platform. Yeah, so that's abstraction, by the way.
Yeah.
If Amazon was branded from a logo perspective, I'm sure you would see this and that on the logo.
Yeah, or a little truck on the logo.
Yeah, a little truck and all that. That's what we have in Zimbabwe. But the world is moved away from that. And I think we blame the clients, but we also blame the designers. I think our role as designers is to educate our clients, no matter how rigid they are. We must.
How can you instruct me about my company? That the conversation then becomes that.
Yeah.
How can you tell me what to do with what I am trying to achieve? How do you then navigate across that?
It's a difficult conversation. It's not easy. But in our case, whenever we facilitate a session, it becomes easier to sell abstraction as a design approach. And they take it, they never disagree. And if you look at Troika Design Workshop, it wasn't they had a logo. I think there's a bigger logo at the back.
At the back.
Yeah. So this is the new logo.
Okay.
So we came on board and rebranded them.
Okay.
Yeah, but our concept or whatever, our direction was based on the meaning of Troika. Troika, it just represents anything that is like maybe in multiple of whatever. I mean the number 3. Yeah. And yes, Troika, when it started, I think it was founded on 3 partners. But anything that is strong forward is a combination of 3 or more. We look at a rope, maybe these 2 I don't know what you call a tambo.
And then,
yeah.
So I'm curious about the Troika design. I see the TW and I see 3 lines at the top coming down. What's the abstraction in that?
So the idea was to represent the founding partners, and we thought that the simplest way we can do it, and also because the logos, they have to be aesthetically pleasing as well. We'll talk about aesthetics, which I think even some logos in Zimbabwe, they suffer from that aesthetics aspect. They're not aesthetically balanced. Yeah.
But balance is a really difficult thing. So I think we can jump into aesthetics because I'm really curious about how to make something visually appealing. So the only thing I understand about aesthetics in terms of visual appeal is symmetry.
Symmetry, yeah.
There needs to be some sort of symmetry, a balance of left and right. Yeah. And if it's asymmetry, it's deliberate asymmetry.
Yeah.
It's not it's not a mistake. It's
not a mistake.
Designers have spent years in school to even make asymmetry look good.
Yeah.
So in terms of aesthetics, in terms of how a company represents itself on a logo, what are the pointers you'd be looking at to say?
Yeah, I think a logo must be, when it's fully done, it must be flexible enough. And for you to get to that aspect, there is obviously the building blocks of a very good logo. You look at typography. In our case, people call it fonts.
Yeah, but font again is really important because font represents what a company is.
Yeah.
So like when I bought an iPhone for the first time in 2017, I understood what they meant by typeface. Like why typeface is super important.
And not very many people use the word typeface. So we understand what our clients say when they say a font, but they're saying a typeface. Yeah. So the choice of the typeface, because I believe a typeface is a voice. So different typefaces carry different characteristics. For example, a sans serif typeface is mostly used in the corporate world. Then when it comes to luxury brands, they use serif fonts, the one with the loops, they look elegant, because they want to sell that luxury aspect. When it comes to posters about, maybe let's say protests and so forth, they use what we call display fonts because they're very shouting, they're huge. So it's the same when you're talking to someone. If someone is standing a few meters away from you, you're not going to say, hey, come here, because that person won't hear you. So you need to shout. So it's the same thing with fonts. And then we also look at what we call hierarchy, visual hierarchy. What is the most important element that I want people to discern from this? That one, it might need a bold font. So a font is a weight, if I'm correct. So when you type Times Roman and there's regular, there's italics, there's bold, that's the font. Times Roman is the typeface. Yeah. So now a good designer now can use that knowledge to come up with a good design, and make sure that aesthetics are kept intact. So to achieve aesthetics or to have an aesthetic balanced logo, it's the design principles, really. So if you don't know the design principles, or if you're a Kia kind of designer, which means you're shortchanging your client, because what you give the client is what they accept, and then they will only know that their mark is substandard probably when they interact with a very experienced designer, someone who knows, hey, my guy, there's a problem here. So designers must be also knowledgeable. They must be at the forefront of trends and reading, and being experts in their field, but also educating their customers. No, this font is not the right for you. Even there's a science to usage of colors. I had one difficult client recently, and I gave up. Said, no, okay, it's fine. We can do whatever you want, but when you look at color usage, especially now more, these days, because of user experience, there's also accessibility issues, contrast ratios. We talk about contrast ratios. So if you don't know the science of colors, you can misinform a client, and it really put up a very bad, maybe contribute to bad user experience, if I may say. Because now you are, what can I say? Sorry, the word is just not coming through. Ignorant. Ignorant to the principles. So in my view, a designer must be an expert. They must know their stuff, and they must educate the client. Give them valid points. Some will take, some will agree. Okay, yes, I agree with you. But there are those ones who are very rigid, and I think mostly old people, they're very rigid. They don't want to change. But also when you look at the startup fairs in Zimbabwe, we're seeing nicely branded startups in Zimbabwe, but I think it's because they're exposed.
Which brands would you say in Zimbabwe, which startups in Zimbabwe would you say are branded in a way that you would be proud of as a designer?
I'll be proud of in Zimbabwe. That's a very good question. But I know there's some. Do you want to help me? Do you know of any brand that's intact, like a startup brand intact in Zimbabwe? A good logo, like in all aspects. A startup. Likeable.
They're actually they do social media marketing.
Oh, okay. I think I know the name of the founder. I forgot. He's going to be watching this and he's going to get upset that I forgot his name. But that's really good. That's a really good point.
Yeah, I think the way they portray their brand is pretty solid. I must say, even the way they set up their workplace, how they teach the marketing, how they document everything,
Okay.
It's very clear what they do and what you can get out of it. And I think they make it an audience very well. So that's one.
So do you have another that you think is really close to? Yeah.
Precision area.
Tawanda Rinzwan did it, and they're close.
Yeah, I think I know that one.
Yeah.
That one it's a very good mark.
Yeah.
I don't know about the logo, but everything else is good. I think.
Yeah, we talk in terms of the aesthetics.
They all the aesthetics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not the whole experience.
All the whole experience.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh,
That's a tough one. Yeah. Okay, I would like to talk about, maybe in addition to that, if we look at gateway streams.
Okay, you're mentioning people we interact with often. Never mind. Continue.
Okay, so I'm in a group of very experienced designers here and South Africa, a few friends. So I told them, guys, I'm having a podcast with Tagzim, and we'll be talking about branding. So I downloaded the Gateway Stream logo and the Airground logo, then juxtaposed that with Spotify, Apple Music, and Tidal. Then asked them, okay, guys, what are your thoughts on these in terms of the entire scope of design principles? And Yeah, those logos, when you scale them down, they become problematic. So a good logo, if scaled down, if reduced to bare minimums, it remains intact. So aesthetics is not compromising functionality over beauty. No, aesthetics is really putting everything into perspective in terms of something that is well balanced, functional, and flexible. So if you reduce the gateway stream logo to its bare minimum, it becomes really hard to notice. Yeah, because a logo, it needs to live in many different places. We talk about application. Sometimes you just need to have your brand mark. Okay, what we call the symbol, not the entire logo.
Yeah.
And can people really tell that this is gateway streams? No, they can't. So we look at the aesthetics from that aspect. We look at the aesthetic side. I think it falls short. It needs to be aligned properly, and maybe stand on the same level with Spotify, Tidal, and so forth.
So, by what you mean by taking to its core elements, is that the deconstruction of a logo? That if you're going to
yes, the deconstruct. Sometimes it's like reducing the size.
The size. Oh, just simply.
I want to brand. The branding space in terms of production is not really big. So now I'm forced to compromise. But a good logo, it's never compromised. When scaled down, when scaled up, it remains intact. And that's the very nature of logos, the best logos that we have across the world. They're scalable to any size, and they don't lose their war sense, if I may put it that way. Yeah.
So you just reminded me something about, so back in our class when I was in high school, many moons ago, they talked about legibility.
Yeah, legibility.
When we were learning to do the block letters, that if we were to blow this up, would it still be readable? So I guess that's what you're saying with brands, that regardless of where you put the brand, like the Spotify logo, whether you put it on a cup or on a watch or whatever, you still know what it is. You won't have to guess as to what you're dealing with.
Yeah. So when you find that if you reduce the size of your logo and you're having legibility issues, then you need to go back to the drawing board and fix that. So maybe those are pointers that, no, I think we need to do things the right way.
Okay.
Yeah. And sometimes it's this habit of saying, okay, I can get a logo for $5. I think that's where the issue comes in.
But now with branding, is the price is usually a deterrent, because people see and they don't. Okay, I'm going to speak from a person who loves art and who loves this kind of stuff. Is I can I won't be accurate, but I can conceptualize the work that has gone into making this what it is. Right, I can try to imagine how they went through the design and the consultations and the workflow process of it and everything. I can kind of have an idea or a sense of it. But since you are in the business itself, can you, just to create a logo, what kind of steps would you need to go? How much time does it take? Just to, let's say the initial interview has been done.
Yeah.
And you have a sense of what the client wants and what you want to convey. What kind of work goes into it, and how is that justified?
I think our process, we really design before we share what we call a stylescape. So a stylescape is a curated mood board. So it gives a sense to the design direction. Then we show the client, this is what we're going to do. Maybe we give them 3 options of that mood board. It's okay, let's have components of 1, 2, 3. Make them into one, and then you guys can proceed. Because I think it's important to get a buy-in from the client before you even start designing. Yeah, obviously before that you do your research. I think in terms of time frame, I think in my case probably maximum a month is the best time frame.
Okay.
But because of experience, you can make it in a week or 2 weeks. But I would like to state that sometimes design is not confined to sitting on a desk and designing on a computer, sketching and all that. When you leave the workplace, when you leave your workstation, you continue to refine the idea in your mind. Sometimes visualizing the idea, removing components and simplifying it. And when you come back to your workstation, you've been working all this time. Like probably you're in a combi, but you're still working. I mean, that's our job as designers. We never leave our work at work. It goes with us. If you're a good designer, yeah, that's my experience. So, but in terms of time frame, I always say to my clients in the proposal, it's going to take like 2 weeks minimum, or maybe to a month and a half. Yeah, and even if I happen to get the best design, I don't want to show you. I leave it completely, because tomorrow when I come back, I'll see a different angle. Then I start adjusting again. So when you come to me and say, I want the logo in 2 days, I'm sorry, I can't give you. It's not possible.
So a month is the time frame. So cost justification is what people I feel don't quite understand about. So I try to think that I understand the stuff that is behind the cost justification, because I've been part of the art process in my younger years, and it's not as simple as to make it out to be. There's a lot of things you need to understand and know prior, and this is doing amateurish stuff. I think Ed can even attest, since he designs logos on the side for fun. It's not fun, right? Like,
it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, yeah. It is.
Especially like just trying to conceptualize stuff for a client where they're like, we want it to look like this, but then you also want to understand the business as well and see what they do and how the logo can relate to what they do.
Yeah.
So
it's a process. Sometimes the first attempt is not the best. It's not, doesn't look good. You need to come back and I think for us at Owner Design, we have broken down our design process for everyone to see, like internally, because we say no, we should be able to get business from any part of the world. And for that to happen, when we design for ourselves. We try to design for the Oscars. So in that aspect, yes, a client wants their logo, but it has to be in the best light possible from our perspective. Yeah. So I think that's the part of, how we refine our logos. If this was a big company somewhere else, will it be seen in the best light? We don't want to shortchange our clients. Sometimes our clients come to us and they say, we don't have that kind of money. But we say, we are building a relationship. This good piece of work would translate into more business for us. So give us time and we'll do our best shot. It's not about money, but it's about building relationships and sharing our best work. Because we get work from sharing our what we have done.
Yeah, because if someone sees a logo and they're like, who designed that? Who designed it? Then
Yeah. So our design process is well articulated. So there's our objectives. It's always for us. Yes, not compromising the client aspirations, their business, and the meaning. But when we say it's for us, it has to be aesthetically balanced and following all the processes of design principles. Then we have also like links where we get inspiration from, so that we manage time, because it's a business. You don't want something that to linger for a long time. When a client is paying less money, it's a loss.
Yeah, it is.
So we've automated that process.
Okay.
You quickly go to all these links. You gather your ideas, you create your mood board, then you put in a presentation and then send to the client. Please check this. Are you happy with the direction? Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Then we'll do our work.
So essentially, it's trying to create something from nothing.
Yeah. Sometimes it's like that. Sometimes I'll give you an example, but we haven't finished this job. So it's a client of ours, because there's many aspects of logo design. There's what we call monograms. For example, if I look at TechZim, if I was to use monogram as an approach, I would play around with the letter T and Z and see what I can come with, what I can derive from that. But also, this particular client, their whole business is built on giving more to their customers. So we said, okay, how do you tie in their monogram plus the meaning? And they happen to use the letter T and M together. So we used the plus sign, and we used the M sign representing more. And it was a beautiful mark. I'm sure very soon we'll be able to show that. Yeah, and when we showed them the whole process, how we got there, they were quite thrilled. They said, hey, this is beautiful. Yeah, and it's a beautiful mark. It looks good on anything. It can be scaled down. So that's our process. And it goes back to the whole aspect of connecting the big idea or the purpose of the company.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's abstraction.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't sell what they do, but it captures their impact, which is like giving their clients more options to reach people, because it's an advertising company.
I'm trying to understand like how you'd be able to communicate this to someone who doesn't number one doesn't want to spend the money for it, and maybe they can be whatever range can be made on the side for that, but also someone who's very, like you said, pictorial about logos. I've seen a lot of there's stuff in my head that I won't mention because but it's, you can see like you're headed towards the direction where you're being explicit and literal about what you're doing, instead of so how do you, because this is again, you are trying to communicate a business's identity to the public. How do you then communicate what you are trying to achieve for the business, or in the presentation? How do you communicate that to someone who might, let's say, doesn't understand it and is honest about the fact that this is not their thing, and also someone who's apprehensive about it's going to be a lot of money to do. How can we guarantee that this will have the best effect? Again, how does this tick the boxes? Is this going to make, the question is this going to make us more money? Is what most people want to know. ROI is a big thing. How is this going to then bring back the money we've then expended into it? Are those things there, or how do you navigate that?
I can't guarantee that you're going to make money from our design, but what I can guarantee from the work process is clarity. And clarity builds brand equity. I'm sure you understand what brand equity is.
I think I can understand it, but I think just go through it and then just describe it.
So brand equity is normally the value that we attach to your brand. And investors, that's what they look at. So if you want to build confidence in your brand, it has to tick all the boxes. Do I have a positive image of my brand? And to build that kind of positive image, I think it's a series of many components, like what we're talking about. And I think that for me, that's the most important thing, that now you've got clarity, you inspire confidence in your product, right? I have a client who said to me, I don't want to shop in this shop because their logo looks ugly. So I can't divulge names. I know my friends going to ask me, but I won't because it's quite sensitive. But this is like in Zimbabwe. You get a customer who says, I'm not going to get into this shop because their logo looks ugly. So we now talk about confidence, brand confidence. And brand confidence is about clarity, right? And being consistent. So the issue of consistency is also very key. We will talk about what we call brand style guides. So you never produce a brand style guide without understanding the purpose and the story. What is our verbal identity as a brand? How do we speak to our customers? So all those components now are now like collected together into a document that we call the brand manual. So the brand manual becomes a living document if you follow through the whole brand strategy process. But if you're just going to design a logo, there's okay, let me create a style guide. You know what? The marketing person for that company will never use it because they don't have any stack in that document. But if you take them through the whole branding process, and they understand their purpose, they understand their verbal identity, they can teach even their colleagues how to use their brand when you're not there, because they're now they were part of that process. So that's how you build clarity to any brand. Yes, the logo identifies the brand, but the logo also needs a set of laws to govern its usage and to maintain its consistency. Consistency builds brand equity. So all these things, they contribute to a confident brand that maybe attracts investors or bring more customers. But to say you're going to make money from that, I don't know. But what I can give you is brand clarity. Yeah. But if you want to make money, let's talk about marketing campaigns or advertising campaigns.
Okay.
What is your goal? I want to make money. I want to increase sales. Now, that's a different conversation. That's a campaign.
But are they both interlinked? So does one help the other?
Yeah, I think they're interlinked in the sense that, I don't know how I can explain it, but I think they're interlinked somehow. That you need a powerful brand that inspires confidence. That is a community. Okay, we go back to the buyers, what we call the customer experience journey. And I'm sure every customer journey, the brand can deploy, or the company can deploy strategic triggers. I want to call these triggers because if the goal is awareness, it's not about making money. It's about making this product maybe at the front of every customer. So the strategies that we're going to deploy is to raise awareness. It's not to convert. And then it's now the consideration stage. Now we don't want our customers now to buy from us. Maybe we use an influencer because she's that influencer maybe has power, has an influence, probably million followers. When they see her drinking this water, her followers or his followers will think maybe that's cool. Let me take that. That's a strategy to encourage people to buy.
But here's the thing. I'm curious to know. Someone ZLG, no disrespect, not disrespect, but nothing stands out.
Nothing
for me.
Nothing stands out.
So what's Voss water in the US? Very expensive bottled water.
I think Vivian.
Yeah.
Vivian is quite expensive.
It looks premium. Like if you're going to get an influencer to get on,
it's an accessory. Yeah. It's an accessory. When you can accessorize a brand, I mean, anyone wants their customers to accessorize their brand.
But the brand itself fits the class of people that become influencers and sell it. And it. So I don't know if this is correct in saying, but I think from where the world is going now with social media and things like that, or the way the world is, because I think going is now it's in the past. We're already there. If you're going to be, if you have an idea of the people you want to deal with the marketing campaigns as influencers or people you're going to hire to represent your brand, it has to match who those people are.
And
if it's on the high end, again, you have to go look at logo design and just how emblematic your messaging is, how you positioned yourself. Before someone can put in this. So imagine Kim Kardashian. Again, no disrespect, ZLG. I'm like, just imagine, let's say Kim Kardashian is the.
I don't think she would take that.
You see, it doesn't suit.
It doesn't tally.
So, even in marketing campaigns when you're influencers, I feel, I don't know, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Sometimes influencers feel like your brand doesn't mesh with their brand. So it's the association that they're like, you know what, you guys are good people, but it doesn't. We don't speak the same brand language.
Resonate. I agree with you, and part of the branding process is understanding your constituency. You need to know your people. Am I a premium brand, or am I a brand for the masses? If you're a brand for the masses, then go for the people that are in touch with the masses. If you're a premium brand like Gucci, Louis Vuitton, you're not like Pep, you're not like Power Cells, or you're not like Edgar's. So the experience is different. The storytelling is different. And the buyer experience map is different. You find that a lot of premium brands, they invest in the richest experiences. They build this loyalty. They've got a lot of they've got a lot of loyalty strategies that they have. Whereas a mass driven brand, they're very pushy. They don't care about experience. In my case, I think that's how I see things. But part of this is knowing your constituents, and how you know your constituents. Okay, where do our people spend most of their time? What language do they speak? What is their mode of transport? You look at the world demographics and the psychographics as well. So that should tell you what sort of visual tone and verbal tone of your brand. So it will actually direct your marketing campaigns. So if your brand is for the low-end market, you're not going to use an elegant font for Louis Vuitton. It doesn't cut through. You're not going to use Kim Kardashian. You're not going to use, Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
Probably you must use Sabuk Varazib.
Yeah.
Because he's the one who identifies with your market. Maybe your market is the dollar deals. So why use Ruvenego? Or why use Misread? The playground is a bit different. So a brand needs to understand its people. It needs to understand where its people spend their time. Okay, if this was like a restaurant or cafe, where will my people be hanging out? Is it Paraya or is it Kwamerek? If it's Kwamerek, speak the Merek language. Don't try to be a friends, whatever, cafe kind of person when your people spend time in Kwamerek.
Here's the thing I'm worried about is I've seen a lot of young startups try to be mass market. And it doesn't strike a chord because you're like, who are you talking to? Do you know your people? Like what you're saying, do you know the people who you want? Okay, let's say you don't know the people. So I like to use the Apple example. That when Steve Jobs designed, or not Steve Jobs, but Steve Jobs designed the Apple and the architecture, obviously very intelligent people went into creating the phone as it was.
Yeah.
I'd like to think they had an idea that this was not for everyone.
Yeah. Very clear.
This is really not. We know the kind of person who wants to buy this. I think we have an idea of that person.
Yeah.
So our brand will speak to that kind of person.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, as a consequence, even people like me who aren't the person that they wanted to buy Apple grew an affinity towards it to be like, oh, this seems exclusive. Let's try it out. So I get this feeling, and you're in the business, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, that most startups, companies in Zimbabwe don't quite know who their customer is.
Yeah.
To then speak the language that then attracts that customer. It feels almost in some marketing campaigns I've seen a very haphazard approach at trying to strike a chord with people. And for me, it's again, what story are you telling with your brand?
What story are you telling, yeah.
And that should inform the kind of everything else down the line, I feel, you should associate with. For example, Apple would, if it came to Zimbabwe, would obviously be in the hands of, if it's a Zimbabwean Apple influencer, immediately we think of either someone who's very high up in tech or even Strive Masiwa himself to be the kind of face that they'll use because he's recognizable. He fits the bill as a person who would use an iPhone, and he has the elegance or whatever you want to call it, or the persona for the brand.
For the brand.
It's not like they're going to go to Jammaster and give him and put him front there, because again, no disrespect, but
Jammaster is a good example.
Yeah, so
we'll talk about that now.
No disrespect, but I'm saying it's like the crowd that he appeals to, and Ed, correct me if I'm wrong, like Jammaster and Apple would not potentially be the best mix, because
no, they're not
because the people who appeal to Apple, I don't think I've heard a Jammaster song. If they have, fair enough, but I'm saying Jammaster would be a better candidate for Techno ITEL.
Yeah,
because
true.
Those are the brands that have positioned themselves in those areas. Something about that coming soon.
Wait, okay, sorry to cut you short. Just on that aspect of Jammaster, I know that just a few months ago he signed a deal with Bengabisi. For I think it's one of their local money transfer. City Hopper, yes. I was one of the people that castigated this move when it started. And then over time, when I looked at the particular product, I said, okay, this was a genius move. City Hopper is a mass market product. It's not for guys that you find, okay, they might use it like that live in the Brook because they've got relatives in the across the country. So they want convenience. They will use City Hopper. But Jam Master might not be their person. But Jam Master connects with a lot of the masses, like in the aspect of Zimbabwe, because our largest population is in the ghetto and the rural areas, right? The affluent, probably they don't need City Hopper, but maybe they might because they've got a granny living in the growth point. So I thought that was a very good, from the City Hopper aspect, but from the Bank ABC Association aspect, I've got issues with that because I've always viewed Bank ABC as a premium bank. I remember when they opened, you could not just walk in and open a bank account. They had to invite you to open a bank account. And now seeing this transition into like a mass market brand, maybe it's the new direction to make more money because they've got a very I don't know what you call him, Lance Mump, or his marketing strategies are quite different. It was a Stewart Bank, we saw the same thing. So that's same energy and vibe.
The Stewart Bank, if I'm not wrong, by design is a mass market product. It's a cassava, eco-cash, eco-net group sort of baby that let's bring banking to the masses. So it made sense. Bank ABC as well. I think that I wasn't around when Bank ABC was very exclusive.
Yeah, it was very exclusive in the initial days,
But I'd imagine it's like, let's say, Nedbank Zimbabwe or NMB, or saying, we're now a mass market brand. When I don't know, for sure, but they seem to appeal more to the corporate clients, the very wealthy. They seem to understand the niche. First Capital, for example, bank seem to be that kind of area. For them to make that kind of switch is
it's not gonna happen. I don't think Stanbic, maybe it has happened, but I don't think Stanbic will have an association.
Standard Chartered.
They won't have an association with a brand like Jam Master. But for Stewart Bank, it's okay. We accept because it's a mass market company. But I think for Bank ABC, it has been a shift for them, and I don't think people understand that maybe the evolution and also the business model that Bank ABC has adopted.
But the communication to customers is the thing, because your brand is also supposed to be communicated clearly.
Yes, it was a shock as well. Because I could see comments on Twitter that people were not, people had reservations about this partnership. But from a strategic, marketing strategy perspective, I think it was a good move for them to use Jam Master for. They could have used another, maybe Killer T, because they all fit the same persona. But it worked for them. But you know what? Right now, my understanding of Bank ABC is that it's not my bank. Because I want exclusivity. So maybe I'll go to Stanbic.
Interesting, because Stanbic is very understated. It's Standard Chartered, very understated banks. They're not really out there.
Even EcoBank,
EcoBank, as well.
So and I think brands in Zimbabwe, they need to understand their people. Like, do you really understand your constituency? Because you're an advocate for that constituency. So do you know the problems? Do you know the issues affecting your constituency? What are you doing about them? And then, are you not misfiring in terms of communication? Probably trying to talk to people who live in the brook when your masses live in the ghetto. Or
trying to talk to people in the ghetto and rural areas when you're speaking North of Samora language. They won't understand what you're trying to say.
So again, to come back to the point, brand strategy affects even the revenue, but it's not really discernible. You can't pinpoint. But I think that clarity now is very important, because once you've got clarity, there's consistency, you build your brand equity.
Because the example of Stewart Bank is interesting, because Takataba Joyner was it on Monday or Tuesday? Monday. Stewart Bank always has a queue. And people always keep coming back. But it's quote unquote Bank Revano, like POSB used to be back in the day. So it's part of the territory. That's what you should expect when you get to Stewart Bank. So customer service, whatever, is another story altogether. But I'm saying it's a people's bank. It's where people go to bank. You wouldn't expect to see that at Stanbic, Stanchart, Nedbank. You won't see that, because the way they've structured their communication is vastly different. they understand who they're there to fulfill. And to tell them to be like, oh, yeah, become a mass market bank, they'll be like, nah, I don't think that's really our thing.
I think they're stuck there. They're not going to move.
Yeah.
Even if they want to move, it's going to be a series of, maybe many years, or not so many years, but it might be a shock to their biggest clientele, if I can put it that way. So recently, I went to KFC by Belgravia just to grab a bite. And ever since KFC came to Zimbabwe, I've always seen them like, okay, these are the cool kids of fast food. They're not in the same category with Chicken Inn and Chicken Slice. And they were very smart. Their floors were always clean. But that particular night, there was litter in the shop. And then I said to one of the attendants there, or the assistants, your shop is quite dirty. It's, look at the floors. She said, okay, how can we clean when there are all people standing? Like, she was very defensive. But I said, no, but you must keep your image intact. If there are people, I'm sure she can ask for people to move and say, okay, can I just clean this part? But that defensiveness for me was quite shocking for a brand like KFC. And to me, I said to myself, okay, it seems like these guys no longer care about customers in Zimbabwe. Their customer care has really gone down. To see a customer defending China shop, that was quite shocking. And I've always associated KFC as a premium brand in the fast food sector in Zimbabwe.
The Zimbabwean context,
We don't have many options, but they sit there. But that particular night, I said to myself, okay, yes, now it's real.
But on the contrary, I think Westgate KFC, they try really hard. They try. I think it's just how that place is structured, and I think where it's positioned, because I have this whole thing about Westgate being one of the best designed shopping malls in Zim, and I think there's a lot more breathing space than, for example, Belgravia, because Pairi, Sam Nioma second, it's that entire area is, especially Friday nights. It's complete not a chaos. So I can understand why, but then again, it's a brand image. So regardless of what the circumstances are like, your brand manual should tell you the steps that you need to go through to be able to achieve, this level of.
And we come back to the culture, like internal branding. So if your customers understand your brand manifesto, if they make it part of their lives, they're willing to defend the brand at whatever cost. Assuming that lady was very defensive about keeping that Chinyangaribo, I'm sure if she had the culture of KFC and understand their legacy, she was just going to say, sorry, it's quite a busy day, but okay, let me ask someone to clean. A customer just needs reaffirmation. I mean, I don't know what you can call that.
Affirmation,
Okay, yes, we acknowledge the problem and say, I'm going to clean it, and then becoming defensive. We live in the social, media, whatever age. It's now quite apparent. And companies have got what we call publicity, departments, if I'm correct. But you find that they no longer have control. Because one tiny mistake a brand makes, the power now the power is now with the customers. I'll just go on Twitter and complain. And then a whole series of complaints against that brand. And the damage is very costly. So employees, they need to understand the responsibility that they have. That how you communicate about the brand and how you defend the brand have a huge impact on the cost of the brand and the cost of the image of the brand. So it's very important that internal branding, people follow all the steps and employees really understand their responsibility and where they stand with regards to the brand. Because they no longer have control, to be honest. Because ndango boy kana mdaraga guys team it takes and you know what, there's some 100 customers or readers that have said but the team no nyebe what you think about my feel living receipts.
And this happens on Twitter a lot. Like people, you then know how deep the rabbit hole goes when a complaint comes, and then you see things that have happened 2-3 years prior, and it affects what you're talking about, brand equity.
Yeah.
Your brand is now compromised.
Compromised,
You can't then present yourself in an image that you'd want, and every stride you'd gained in forward direction is now a million steps back, and posting apologies.
Man. I mean, it's the world we live in, but I think brands must do better.
Yeah, definitely.
I think in Zimbabwe, customer experience is very bad.
Yeah, user experience is something I've really helped on about, especially in terms of apps, app design, and just apps in general. Yeah, we're still way behind. There are few apps I can say I'm confident in that this was well thought out.
Yeah.
But everything else, I was like,
it's a copy and paste.
Yeah,
it's a copy and paste. I think it's not a custom solution, because to design really good apps, you have to really understand user experience, and user experience is not a one night thing. It's easy to pull out a user interface design. You can pretty much design like the whole entire scope of an application in 2 days. Buttons, this and that, but the user experience is not, because user experience is really advocating the needs of the users and meeting the goals of the stakeholders, the business, who are the owners of the business. So a user experience designer, in my case, spends more time with the users, then comes back and meets the stakeholders and, guys, this is what people want. Okay, yes, you want this feature, but they're not using that feature. So it's a result-driven, strategic process, whereby you bring people to test the product before it's even in the development stage. Yeah, so that's aspect of user experience. I don't think people are doing that in Zimbabwe.
People are trying. I know a company that's trying, but in terms of making it make sense to everyone, it's like I was talking to a friend a couple of weeks ago, and she's basically asking me, like, what would you do if you wanted to design an app? And I'll be like, what is the app for? And it's like, well, in this case, features don't matter. And my response was, well, where are we going to put the buttons? Because I know a lot of left-handed friends who have problems with apps because everything is right-hand orientated.
Exactly.
It's like, how do we then make this sit centrally off everything? How do we make this inobtrusive as possible? Okay, in terms of that, how do we scale it to different size of phones? So in the Zimbabwean context, there are people with the big, iPhone Maxes and people with smaller devices. How do we then make that make sense for them, for the scaling perspective? How is it going to change when we then warp it? So regardless of what you're trying to make people use, what's the usability like? So she said
usability is quite important.
Start with a blank. It's a blank of the app, and then see, regardless of what you're trying to do, can you reach buttons? It's something you can operate one-handedly. Something that can get to the point that it's muscle memory. That when you open an app, you immediately know where the buttons are and where everything is. And
is that what they call the mental mods?
I have no idea what it's called. Like, for me, it's just how I conceptualize things. So it's just can I? The best example of this is the FBC Bank app.
I've never used that. I'm not an app.
It's not the best. Yeah. But in terms of banks that I've used, that I can now operate it subconsciously, or it's now muscle memory to operate it. The way they arrange the buttons, they understood that airtime is one of the most sought after things when it comes to bank apps, and it's right there. It's not well labeled. Like, it took me, I think, a week to understand that that's what it was. But when I found it, it's really close in either hand. I don't know whether there's a copy and paste or whatever they did, but it's a lot better. Even multiple accounts. They're there on the dashboard, very clear. NMB's Connect app, very beautiful, but a little bit too much for me. Just my opinion.
I also found that there's a Psy app to be quite lacking in terms of design.
Don't get me started. Do not get me started.
Yeah, they need to redo this Psy app.
No,
please,
they need to reconceptualize.
Reconceptualize, yeah.
Because
and again, what you were saying about I don't know what you could say, muscle memory. Muscle memory.
Yeah.
So those are user patterns. A user experience designer understands the psychology of users, right? How the users interact with an application, how they use it. So over time, they now understand the habit, like what you're saying. And I think when I did my UX, the term we're using was user patterns. Yeah, I'm not quite sure about mental modes, what it means, but I'll need to check. Yeah, so like the FBC Bank application you mentioned, maybe it was designed from that perspective that, they understood the people in Zimbabwe, okay, users locally, that, okay, this is how it's going to be friendly for them. And it's proven because there's data to prove that. So part of user experience is gathering data, factual data, and they use many research methods, quantitative, qualitative, and these inform the design, the wireframe. Then the UI will come later, and the development is the last stage. Yeah, but most apps in Zimbabwe are not designed like that. Then there's a design system as well. That now, because programmers are not designers, let's be honest, they're not designers.
They're not.
They need your guidance as the designer. Okay, they need the exact pixels to use. So that's how the structure and the design, the UI is maintained. But if you leave it to them now, the user experience is not going to be the best. So I don't think brands in Zimbabwe, maybe they might understand the impact of user experience design, but they're not keen to invest in that because user experience is quite a process.
But it's now a whole economy. So this friend of mine was telling me as well that it's a whole economy now. It's a whole market that people are, the experience market is now a thing worldwide. I think John mentioned it as well in the podcast I had.
But how about Zim? Is the same?
It's not the same. It's because I don't want to sound mean, but no food's got my brands.
Yes.
Like they expect us to come to them rather than the inverse. Because you are supposed to the company is supposed to look for us, make it easier for us to use their processes. So even when you look at USSD designs, like I know USSD is a very simple concept, star whatever hash, but can you build it into a way that it can then work with your users in mind? What are they looking for first? How to stack and stagger the list? How to make it easier to then, do stuff like what banks did with beneficiaries, where an entire process tree is now automated. If I'm sending $10,000 of airtime to my mother every month, that transaction is saved in my USSD. I can then, if it's not even the amount,
it's a nightmare. Right now, it's a nightmare.
But banks like Netbank, I think FBC, NMB, most of them do it now with beneficiaries. That you can then go and then set a beneficiary, and then that process tree is compacted. So I would prefer to go to those banks and deal with them rather than Mamwese, you have to enter the account number again. And
I think it's the same issue with the Stanbic SSD platform. You cannot even buy airtime or maybe recharge, even buy data. You have to actually transfer money into your EcoCash.
Or bank to wallet.
Bank to wallet. It's quite a process.
Okay. I didn't know that about Stanbic.
Yeah, it's quite a process. And it's not enjoyable, to be honest. It's quite frustrating. Going through all those steps all the time. It's inconvenience. So good user experience looks into those issues and say, because user experience is part of customer experience. You want your customers to enjoy using the product. But now you don't want them to be complaining and, because when they start complaining, they now associate that problem with your brand. And your brand perception now kind of like in the negative. You always want your brand to be in the positive. So I think marketing departments and even the business owners, they really need to understand what is good user experience and start to invest in that. I think in Zimbabwe, because I don't know why is that we seem to be getting the waste of services in Zimbabwe. It's a problem.
My assumption is I think people prioritize launching features over launching experiences. I think you see new feature here, new feature there, and I'm like, fantastic, but is that feature usable? Like, can I make it? Is it usable? Like, have you thought it out to the nth degree that every single iteration of the app or every single function in the app, we've gone through it in depth and understood, okay, how might someone want to use this?
Exactly.
And when we've come with our permutations and combinations, we then focus group it.
And
see how people understand, how people interact with something. So it's in the same sense as content creation, so writing and doing podcasts. We would have never been able to have this conversation had I not met Faziso, had I not met you at Culture Creatives, had we then not gone in the streets and seen what's happening, and then I said, no, there actually is a deficiency with this kind of thing. So what's the problem?
Yeah.
So again, it's part of. So I'm not saying we've refined our content model to
Yeah,
any degree. I'm just
yeah.
saying is that process of learning.
Learning.
Who are we? What are we trying to do?
What are
What
we
are we trying to
trying to
achieve?
do?
And I
Yeah.
think that's something that companies should ask themselves.
Yeah, and also there's the aspect of design thinking. It's shaping institutions, businesses across the world. I'm not sure about in the local context that do business apply the process of design thinking, because design thinking is built from a user, from a customer or user perspective, and then you need to have empathy. Like you mentioned that you had to go around and you see the deficiencies, and then you said, okay, this is wrong. Okay, let's talk about this, right? So part of design thinking is having empathy, and I don't think maybe I stand corrected that local businesses really understand what their customers are going through. So there's no empathy involved. I think it's more like a sort of like, okay, they'll figure it out. They'll use it. They have no option, right? It's okay. No, we don't have to. It's okay. Small budget. It's okay. They'll figure it out. Okay, leave them like that. But in other countries, they invest a lot of time in understanding, their customers and really giving the best of user experience. I think that's because we live in a connected world.
Yeah.
And these apps, these brand touch points, because an application is basically a brand touch point. So it builds into your perception, your brand perception, and that affects your brand equity. So if the USSD is not well aligned, take research, ask customers questions. Guys, what do you think about this service? Where would you want us to improve? I see Zoho sometimes they have those
surveys.
Yeah, and they ask questions. Okay,
but are they done well enough? I think First Capital as well, if I'm not mistaken. I saw on their Twitter they had a little survey going on.
Surveys, yes.
Yeah, but here's the thing: how long can you take surveys? Because my thinking is, the surveys are like, please, dear customers, please take the survey. In my mind, is like, okay, for my use case, I'd be like, if it was communicated as, we want to make our services better, please help us by asking X amount of questions.
Yeah.
But they seem shy about, asking for help from their customers.
I don't know what's the problem that we have. I think we much of a copy and paste kind of doing things. I don't know if you agree with me.
Oh yeah, I have a lot to say about that, but I'll keep quiet.
We go online and see how it's done. Then we copy and paste. But now maybe it doesn't work with our people. Maybe our people needs a different approach. So yes, okay, see and get exposed, but now come and refine and contextualize it with your people. The needs are different. The tools are different. So does your platform, is it the one that's used by most people? So then just blanket apply. You're going to have problems. And I think that needs to be rectified in Zimbabwe. The only company that I've seen, maybe it's because it's a global or maybe it's a regional company, Old Mutual. They've got one of the best design systems. If you go on their website, you could see their design system. And they seem to have like a consistent online image in terms of their website. Obviously, they're benefiting from improved or maybe developed economies. Yeah, but in terms of the indigenous companies we have, brands we have, I think they don't quite really comprehend a user experience to that extent. And I think it needs to change. Yeah. I just hope that maybe the government will open up the market and we have some of these biggest brands. Then maybe one day our indigenous brands will wake up and say, okay, yeah, we've been taking our people for a ride. But now we need to do all these things. Yeah.
I think that's a good place to leave it off, because I think we've been at time. What were we at with time? Little over an hour. A little over an hour. Sort of. So Sherman, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you
for
so
inviting
much.
us to Honor Design. This is to hopefully become a first of many in terms of conversations we should have of brands. But I wanted to just get a general scope, since you've been in Zimbabwe for a really long time and you understand the inner workings, and you've worked with, you said Magamba.
Yeah, we've worked with a lot of brands personally as a designer, then now this as a practice.
Okay.
Yeah, we work with a lot of different clients, NGOs, startups.
Yeah. So
But I think our strength is connecting with startups, because we're sort of like in the same wavelength of ideas. Just like you, we connect, at many levels, and it's easy to convince you to maybe take a certain path. And I think that's the case with our startups. They sort of like see the future, and our hope is that these startups can become the next Econet of Zimbabwe.
That's going to be a tough one to do, but hopefully they can do that. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for inviting us over. So it's been fun. It's been enlightening. It's been interesting. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know 2 brand podcasts in a row should tell you something. There's a problem. Please start fixing it.